The golden childhood trap. Have you ever looked back at your childhood and thought, wow, life was so much easier then? Like, summers were endless, cartoons were better, and your biggest responsibility was not losing your Pokemon cards. And then you remember your mom screaming at you to clean your room, or the existential dread of waiting 3 weeks for a pen pal letter from camp to arrive. Yeah, not exactly paradise, but nostalgia has a way of photoshopping all that out. We've all been there, staring at an old photo and thinking, man, if I could just go back. But here's the thing, that kid in the photo, they were probably bored out of their mind half the time, whining about homework or crying because someone stole their fruit roll-up. Childhood wasn't an enchanted bubble, it was just life, but with smaller shoes and worse haircuts. The only reason it feels golden now is because your brain has sneakily deleted the tedious parts, like waiting at the DMV equivalent of being 8 years old, the school bus line. Psychologists call this rosy retrospection. It's the brain's adorable little trick of exaggerating the good parts of the past and quietly shredding the bad parts like an overworked intern. There's actual research showing that people consistently misremember vacations as better than they really were. You forget the rainstorms and the mosquito bites, and instead you swear it was the best trip ever. Nostalgia basically airbrushes your personal history into an Instagram highlight reel, which is comforting, but also dangerous. Because when we worship childhood as a golden age, we use it as proof that everything after has been a slow, sad decline. The truth? Life wasn't easier back then, it was just different stress in a smaller sandbox. The homework may have become taxes, but the human brain still freaks out at both. So what do we do with this? The trick isn't to stop feeling nostalgic, it's to remember the past was never the whole story. If you catch yourself longing for the simple days, try this. Write down one hilarious or miserable detail you've conveniently forgotten. Like that time your Tamagotchi died for the 5th time, or how you once got grounded for eating frosting straight out of the can. Reclaiming the real picture keeps nostalgia from gaslighting you into believing your best days are already behind you. Spoiler, they're not. They're just waiting for you to stop staring at old yearbooks. So yeah, childhood wasn't a golden palace, it was a sticky-fingered, cranky, awkward mess. Which means the good old days were never that good. But if you think that's depressing, wait until we talk about the reason you keep buying retro gadgets that break in 2 weeks. The false comfort of old things. Tell me you haven't done this. You see a vinyl record, or a Polaroid camera, or even a vintage-inspired toaster, and suddenly you need it. Even though you already own Spotify, a 12-megapixel phone camera, and a perfectly good toaster. But hey, the retro version feels warmer, safer. Like maybe if we surround ourselves with old things, the present won't feel quite so terrifyingly unstable. We all do it. Some people hoard records, others collect typewriters, and then there are the brave souls who still use fax machines because they just work better. Sure, Jan, what we're really craving isn't the object itself. It's the feeling the object promises, comfort, familiarity, a link to a time when the world felt less chaotic. A vinyl crackle can feel like an antidote to constant doom scrolling. A retro font on a cereal box feels like a hug from Saturday morning cartoons. But let's not kid ourselves, half the time, the toaster still burns your bread, and the camera film costs more than your rent. Cultural critics call this retromania, the endless recycling of past aesthetics to soothe our anxieties about the future. Designers know nostalgia sells, so they slap a heritage look on everything from sneakers to soda cans, and we fall for it because the past feels safe in ways the present doesn't. Remember when Coke re-released their old-school glass bottles? People lined up for something they could literally buy in plastic 2 seconds later. Psychologically, it's the same impulse as comfort food, not because mac and cheese is nutritionally superior, but because it reminds you of a time when you weren't drowning in emails. Nostalgic objects are emotional pacifiers. Except instead of soothing babies, they soothe over-caffeinated adults who just want life to stop glitching for 5 minutes. Here's the deal. There's nothing wrong with enjoying a little retro charm. Buy the vinyl, use the film camera, eat the dinosaur-shaped nuggets. Life is short. But remember that the comfort is symbolic, not structural. Your record player won't fix climate change, and your 90s font cereal box isn't going to lower your blood pressure. The smarter move? Use nostalgia objects as a reminder to create those feelings now. Play a record because it forces you to slow down and listen, not because you think 1978 was a utopia. Spoiler, it wasn't. They still had Disco Duck. So yes, retro gadgets and aesthetics are cozy, but they're also emotional security blankets we keep buying over and over. And if you think that's just harmless fun, wait till you see how nostalgia convinces us to erase the ugliest parts of history, and that's where things really get messy. The progress amnesia effect. You ever hear someone say, We need to get back to the good old days, and you're like, which part exactly? The lead paint? The secondhand smoke buffet in every restaurant? The fact that a phone call costs more than rent? But nostalgia is sneaky like that. It edits history into a Pinterest board where everything is sepia-toned and charming instead of toxic and vaguely carcinogenic. We've all indulged in this fantasy, imagining a time when life was simpler. People cooked at home, kids played outside, nobody was glued to a screen. Sure, but they also died of polio, had asbestos in their walls, and thought seatbelts were a communist conspiracy. It's easy to forget that our so-called progress has made life objectively safer, longer, and less deadly. Yet, when we're stressed out by endless emails and overpriced oat milk, our brains cherry-pick the past, turning horrors into quirky charm. We forget the soot-covered cities and remember the cheap gas. We forget the sexism, racism, and constant wars, but hey, wasn't the music better? Historians and sociologists point out that nostalgia thrives during times of rapid change. It's a coping mechanism. When the present feels overwhelming, we fantasize that the past was stable. But here's the kicker: the good old days weren't actually good. Urban planning disasters of the mid-20th century, like leaded gasoline and sprawling highways, poisoned entire generations. Indoor smoking wasn't charming, it was killing people in slow motion. Even the stuff we call classic design was often just dangerous shortcuts with a pretty face. This selective forgetting, I call it progress amnesia, tricks us into thinking society peaked decades ago, when, really, we're standing on the shoulders of improvements we barely acknowledge. Nostalgia edits out progress because progress is messy, noisy, and unromantic. So how do we fight progress amnesia? By practicing a little historical honesty. Next time you hear someone sigh about simpler times, ask, simpler for who? Sure, gas was cheap in 1965, if you ignore the fact that women couldn't open credit cards without a husband's signature. The fix isn't to shame nostalgia, but to pair it with perspective. Acknowledge the comfort of a memory and the reality of its flaws. It's like enjoying a vintage car while also admitting it's a death trap without airbags. You can appreciate the charm without rewriting history into a fairy tale. So no, the past wasn't a utopia, it was just a different flavor of broken. And if you thought editing history was bad, wait till we talk about how nostalgia doesn't just rewrite the past, it robs us of actually living in the present. The stolen present. You ever get stuck scrolling through old Facebook photos at 2 a.m., convincing yourself that life was perfect in 2011? Meanwhile, the pizza you ordered is cold, your dog is staring at you for a walk, and you've basically ghosted the actual moment you're in. Nostalgia is a thief. It doesn't just sugarcoat the past, it quietly steals the present right out from under you. We've all done it. You're at a family gathering, someone brings up the way things used to be, and suddenly everyone is sentimental about cassette tapes and Friday night bowling leagues. Meanwhile, the kids are running around, people are laughing, and you're missing it because you're too busy replaying a mental mixtape from decades ago. Nostalgia feels like connecting, but in practice it often means abandoning the only time you actually have, now. It's like rewatching the pilot of your favorite show while ignoring the new season airing live in front of you. Comforting? Yes, but also a little tragic. Psychological research shows that while moderate nostalgia can boost mood, overindulgence actually lowers satisfaction with the present. In mindfulness studies, people who spent too much time reminiscing reported feeling more disconnected and less happy in daily life. Think about it. The more you idealize a past summer, the more today's cloudy Tuesday feels like a failure. Nostalgia rewires your baseline expectations, so reality never measures up. And culturally, we encourage this. Throwback Thursdays, retro TV reboots, endless reunion tours. We're so busy looking backward, we don't notice the present slipping by. It's like taking a vacation but spending the whole trip looking at last year's photos instead of the actual beach in front of you. The fix? Treat nostalgia like dessert. A little sweetness is fine, but it can't be the main course. If you find yourself time traveling to the past too often, try a mindfulness hack. Name one small detail about the present moment you'd actually miss if it were gone. The way your kid mispronounces a word, the exact shade of sunset on your street, even the weird comfort of your lumpy couch. The trick isn't to reject the past, but to balance it with real-time gratitude for the mess in front of you. Spoiler, nostalgia won't keep the pizza warm, but noticing it will. So yeah, nostalgia is basically emotional pickpocketing, robbing the moment you're actually in. And if that doesn't sting enough, the next point will, because it turns out the real villain isn't even nostalgia, it's your own memory gaslighting you on a daily basis. The betrayal of memory. Ever dig up an old memory and swear it happened exactly that way, only for someone else to chime in and say, no, that's not how it went at all, And suddenly you realize your brain has been lying to you, like a shady contractor who promised granite countertops but delivered linoleum. Welcome to nostalgia's favorite party trick, your own memory quietly rewriting the past until it feels better, shinier, and way more cinematic than it actually was. We've all had those, wait, what, moments. You remember your childhood bedroom as massive, but you revisit it and it's the size of a closet. You swear your high school band was good, but the old recordings sound like a dying blender. Memory betrayal is brutal because it makes you question your own life story. Was it ever as fun, romantic, or meaningful as you thought? Or has your brain been running a highlight reel with heavy editing, conveniently leaving out acne, awkward silences, and your questionable JNCO genes phase? Cognitive psychologists have proven that memory isn't a file cabinet. It's a remix studio. Every time you recall something, your brain slightly alters it, influenced by mood, context, and what you wish had happened. This is why eyewitness testimony is famously unreliable. Nostalgia takes that natural fuzziness and weaponizes it, gaslighting you into believing things were better than they really were. One study even showed people misremembered mundane events as more positive years later, like recalling fun dinners that were actually just awkward takeout on a rainy night. In other words, your brain is less historian, more screenwriter. The betrayal isn't malicious, it's just how memory works. But it also means the storybook version of your past might be more fiction than fact. So how do you live with a brain that constantly lies to you? Simple, stop treating memory as gospel. Think of it as fan fiction, inspired by true events but always dramatized. When nostalgia hits, use it as a reminder of what mattered to you emotionally, not as a literal record. Instead of saying, those were the best years, try asking, what need was I fulfilling then that I still crave now? That way, the betrayal becomes a clue. Maybe it wasn't the summer job that made you happy, but the freedom, and freedom, unlike perfect memory, is something you can still chase today. So yes, your brain has been quietly gaslighting you for decades. And the worst part? Nostalgia doesn't just mess with your past, it sabotages your future too. Because if you're always chasing a dream version of yesterday, you may never build a tomorrow worth remembering. The unlived future. Ever notice how the more you pine for the past, the less energy you have to imagine anything new? It's like nostalgia is that clingy ex who won't let you move on, always sliding into your DMs, whispering, "Remember how good we had it?" Meanwhile, the future's over here waving its arms, begging for attention, and you're too busy watching reruns of your own life. We've all been guilty of this. You daydream about how much happier you were back then, and suddenly every attempt to plan for the future feels impossible. Why bother setting goals when nothing will ever match the mythical summer of '95 or the way things used to be? Nostalgia doesn't just dull the present, it hijacks your sense of possibility. Instead of imagining new adventures, you cling to reruns like someone watching the same sitcom season for the 12th time. Safe, predictable, and a little soul-crushing. Sociologists talk about future fatigue, the sense that modern culture has lost its ability to dream big. In late capitalism, we recycle aesthetics, reboot franchises, and remix playlists instead of inventing new ones. Nostalgia fuels this cycle. If we convince ourselves the best has already happened, we stop demanding better systems, better communities, or better lives. Studies show that future-oriented thinking is crucial for resilience and mental health. But nostalgia drains that energy, pulling us back instead of pushing us forward. It's not just personal, it's cultural. The reason we keep rebooting old movies isn't because they're better, but because we're scared to risk imagining something new. Here's the twist. The best way to honor the past is to use it as raw material for the future. Ask yourself, what did I love about that time, and how can I build it into my life now? If you miss the community of your college days, maybe you need to join a book club, not just rewatch Animal House. If you miss the excitement of your first job, maybe it's time to start a side project, not buy another retro desk lamp. Nostalgia doesn't have to be a cage. It can be a compass, pointing you toward what matters most, if you let it. So yeah, nostalgia can be comforting, but left unchecked, it leaves you stranded in the past with no map forward. The secret regret it hides? Not that life is worse now, but that we never gave the future a fighting chance. Look, none of us signed up for life to feel like this. Exhausted, overstimulated, quietly haunted by the suspicion that our best days are already in the rearview mirror. Nostalgia makes it worse because it sells us a version of the past that never fully existed. Childhood wasn't golden, it was sticky and awkward. Retro gadgets aren't time machines, they're emotional pacifiers. The good old days weren't safer, they were just dangerous in different ways. And while we're busy polishing those memories, the present keeps slipping by, stolen by a brain that edits history like a Hollywood reboot. The deeper problem? Nostalgia doesn't just mess with our perception of the past, it blocks us from building a future. When we convince ourselves the peak is behind us, we stop imagining what could still be ahead. That's the real regret, not the stuff we lost, but the chances we never took because we were too busy longing for yesterday. But here's the hopeful twist. Nostalgia isn't evil. It's a signal, a reminder of what mattered, what comforted us, what made us feel alive. If we treat it as a compass instead of a cage, we can use it to design a present that's actually worth remembering tomorrow. So send this to someone who insists therapy is just extreme podcasting, because honestly, that might be true. But at least therapy won't let your brain keep running reruns on loop.